Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Powercolor Devil 13 7990. Now I have already done like a box opening and a good overview of the aesthetics of the card and everything that's in the box. So what I'm going to do is stick a linky thing in, so if you want to have a look at all of that kind of stuff, then you can just go and take a quick look at that video, and it covers everything. I will give you a look at the test rig and talk you through some of the stuff anyway. But then what we're going to do is, this is a 7990. It is kind of a bit strange because normally the main OEM like AMD will have their version of this out first, but Powercolor have got in there. We still don't know whether we are going to see an AMD one or not. Now we can speculate about all that kind of stuff, but that would really need to be done in a separate video. So what we're going to do is, like I said, I'm going to give you a look at the bench rig, and we'll talk through the settings, the card, and all that kind of stuff. We'll go in and I'll show you some benchmarks that I've already done with some screenshots. If we always do, talk about the comparisons. I am going to be comparing this directly with a pair of single 7970s in this video, but if you want to see results with like 690s and other graphics cards, then you can check the main review link underneath the video. It will get put there as soon as I've put the main review up. But then also we'll get to the conclusion, and we'll give a really in-depth kind of like roundup right at the very end. But I need to grab my remote because I need to stop this section of the video here and get the camera reset up so we can have a look at the bench rig. Right then, bench rig today is kind of my static bench rig for this kind of stuff really, all based around the Rampage 4 Extreme. Then we've got a 3960X in there running at 4.6 gigahertz. We've got 16 gigabyte of Corsair Dominator Platinum running at 2133. Corsair AX 1200 watt power supply. Then we've got the Corsair Neutron GTX 240 gigabyte solid state drive in there now as well. That's a new addition. Then we've obviously got the Devil 13. Now I did say previously, as I'm looking around for my ruler, I should really have grabbed this beforehand, because I know now I'm not going to be able to find it for toffee. I did say in the video previously that the fans were all 92mm. Now this fan is 92mm, but the middle one is smaller. It's only 80mm, I'd say, maybe a smidge smaller than 80mm. So that was my mistake in the hasteness to try and get the original kind of video up. But never mind, we're all only human, and I don't mind admitting my mistakes. So yeah, there we have got the Devil 13. Something I'm still not 100% sure about is the fact that the stickers are upside down here, upside down on the back plate. People say that, you know, Devil or the number 13 is meant to be upside down because of, you know, the symbolisation with, you know, the actual thought of it being devilish and stuff. Yeah, I don't really get that. I'd rather have it the right way round. It just looks wrong. I still think that the back plate, 100% don't like it. I think it should be the right way up. Yeah, it really does wind me up to the point where if I owned this, I would warm this up so that the glue was tacky, take it off, spin it round, and then refit it again. The back plate I'd probably end up just covering up altogether. But yes, that is just me, but that's the rig. Obviously I did forget that we're using the H100 at the top there, but that is the bench rig today. As far as the games go, I always get asked, but we run everything, we turn everything on, everything maxed out as much as we possibly can do, around a 1920 by 1080 resolution. So you don't need to ask me, was this on? Because the answer is, if I can turn it on, yes. The other thing that I need to say is, everyone asks me what the overlay is throughout all the games as well. It's Afterburner. Afterburner as an OSD on-screen display, and you can configure that to put whatever you want at the top. Don't ask me how I got it running. It's all in there. You can just play about with it, and you can get all those things and many more running yourself. But anyway, I now will need to get the camera set up so we can start having a look at the performance comparisons between this and a pair of normal 7970s. Right then peeps, on the left hand side we have the this is a pair of stock 7970s. And then on the right hand side we have the Devil 13. So stock 7970s, we had a P score in 3D Mark 11 of 14,771. Now the 7990 actually was 200 and nearly 200 points in front. It's 14,741. Now what we do need to remember is these are the original scores from when we originally tested the 7970s out of the box. So this could have a little bit of a boost from maybe driver improvements. But if we move on, we can then go on to X scores, and you can see that we've got 5,380 for the twin cards, and then 5,445 for the single dual core card. But obviously that's still a good few points in front there. My maths is really failing me today. But the thing is when we move on, we get when we go on to Vantage, we get 51,470 for Vantage. But for the single card, we've only got 50,742. Now we can see that nearest damn it, the CPU scores are the same, 47,000 versus 46,968. So really, that's within a tolerance. But the difference, as you can see, is we got 53,153 for the GPU score against 52,139 for the GPU score on the dual core card. So that's where the performance difference really comes from, is that GPU score difference. And when we go on to Extreme, it's the same thing. You can see we've got 32,036 versus 31,794. Again, not a massive amount of difference between the CPU scores. All the settings were pretty much the same, but it's the GPU score where the difference comes in. So that's that side of things pretty much covered. Now what I want to do is I'm going to stop the camera quickly, and I'm just going to get ready to show you some overclock stuff. Right, now the card on the back has got a turbo button. Showed you that in the video previously. Now if you switch the rig off, hit the turbo button and then start it up again. I don't think you can do it from within Windows. Although I probably should test that before I get to the conclusion. I've always found it safer, especially with BIOS. You don't really want to be messing around with it with the operating system still running. And you're only really going to want to have it running one way or the other anyway. Anyway, you can do that, and it ups the core clock on the card from 925 up to 1000. So I run some basic tests just so I can show you the difference between the two. So on the left hand side, this is the stock 7990 against the turbo clock 7990. So it goes up from 14,941 up to 14,996. And if you look at the extreme scores, it's actually slightly goes down, 5,445 to 5,430. Now you could say that's like a run tolerance, but I run this test where it went down. I run it a few times, restarted, that kind of thing. And as you'll see in a minute, it's something that's happened in Vantage as well. But if we move on to normal Vantage score, you can see that it goes up slightly, 50,742 up to 51,037. That's with a GPU score of 52,139 versus a GPU score of 52,549. But again, if you go on to the extreme score, it actually went down a bit. 31,794 down to 31,637. Now what you need to remember is when you put it into extreme mode, it's running extra resolution, it's running extra like anti-aliasing, all that kind of stuff, and the scores actually took a little bit of a dip compared to the stock score, which I found a little bit strange. But nevertheless, that is what happened. Now what I want to do, because I did some manual overclocking as well, so the next sort of test, I'm going to show you the turbo clock compared to my manual overclock. Right, first thing to show you with the manual overclock, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, because there is a Powercolor tool which I'm just opening for you. This is the Powercolor tool. Now when I use this, Originally I didn't think the card overclocked that much. As soon as you started to play around with it, it became unstable, it'd be freezing in benchmarks. I just thought the card couldn't overclock that much because that's what I was expecting. But I thought, you know what I mean, I'm going to give Afterburner a try and we'll run with Afterburner. And I was really glad I did, because Afterburner, I managed to get the core, I maxed Afterburner out, 1125 on the core, got the memory up to 1500, and it was only a real minor increase on the volts, because if you look where the hand is here, the volts were only really there on that scale. Anyway, because don't forget this is Afterburner, so Afterburner seeing a fair bit of voltage going through anyway, compared to a stock 7970. So I didn't really move it up much further than it already was. So we got from 1000, because it's in a turbo mode, but then we overclocked from within the turbo mode. So it went up from 1000 to 1125 on the GPU core, and 1375 up to 1500 on the memory. That was 100% stable, and I honestly think that if Afterburner limits were removed on the core, I think I could have pushed it even further on the core. Now, people will be wondering about temperatures and stuff, and one thing I will say is they weren't as bad as you would expect. Running it like that, and I left Unigine running for about an hour and a half looping with the overclock, and only went up to 74 degrees. And it was idling at 37, so it was, you know, it was doing really, really well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some scores side by side so that you can see them. Now, this is the turbo score, 14,996. Manual overclock score was 16,749. So not a small increase there at all. Nearly 1,800 points increase. I'm properly amazed with this. Now, before we noticed that the scores went down with the extreme, not with this. 5,430 for the stock turbo mode, and then up to 6,322 for the X score on the manual overclock. Moving on to Vantage, I'm racing through these because it's just really me showing you screenshots. We went up from 51,037 with a GPU score of 52,549 up to 54,165 with a GPU score of 57,140. Now that's nearest damn it a 5,000 point increase on the GPU score, and nearly 3,000 points on the total score. It was huge. And then before we noticed the scores went down with Vantage X, but we had 31,637 with a GPU score of 31,094 for the turbo mode. That went up by a monumental amount to 36,728 with a GPU score of 36,303. So I'm massively surprised at the performance increases you can get when you overclock this card. Like I said, temperatures were 74, absolute max chat. The fans do spin up a little bit more, but you're running two fully fledged cards on this. It was quieter than I was expecting. I'm not sure whether you can hear in the background, but there's a bit of coil whine on it, which is probably the most annoying thing. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you some very quick gaming sections, literally very quick, and then we'll move on to the conclusion. Right, I'm sorry for the glare. I've got all the curtains and everything shut. Something I do want to point out here. Now, it's not a card problem per se. It's more of a driver stroke game issue. I think it's more of a game problem. Now, I'm just going to... Right, just hit pause. This is the GPU temperatures. These on the outside are the fan speeds. But this one in the middle that says 95% and then 0%, that is the actual core loading. So you can see there that the game is only really using one core on this card. And there's just nothing we can do about that whatsoever. That's just the way it is. Now, one thing I will say is while I'm down here, I'm actually underneath the camera. and I can't see the screen very well, but I will try my best. We all know that I'm not the best gamer in the world. I'm not the best gamer in the world at the best of times, but when I can't see for toffee, which I can't at the moment, just keep an eye on the frames per second, and I'm going to try and not die too quickly. Right, well that's not going to happen, is it? Right, we'll reload it. Right, I've repositioned myself this time. Now, like I said, I really am not the best person for this. But then, I don't play these games for fun. The only time you'll get me playing these are when you're watching. Yeah, we got him. Right. So yeah, I'm not the best, but just keep an eye on the stats. At the end of the day, that's what we're here for. Did the smoke clear, thank you. Where'd he go? Well, there he is. Right, I'm really not going to bore you with any more of my bad BF3. But as you can see, the game is only really using one core on the card on this, and it's one of the reasons why I put it in was just so that you could see it. Right then, so into Crisis 2. Don't forget, this in the middle is the percentage that has been used. The cores are being used, so you can see that you're getting healthy core usage then, there. Now, I'm not very good at this. Don't mind admitting it. I should play it a bit more, I might get a bit better. But I normally try and kill the alien dude with this. Oh, I've got him already. As you can see, I've completely blasted the living bejesus out of him. It's just the metal suit left, which is pretty, you know what I mean, basic. But you can see now that the frames per second is nearly at 100. But the cores are only being used at 77%. Now I'm still going to have a bit of a run round so that you can see. It definitely does use more when that alien dude is running about. You see, we're up to 90% now. When you get all the fog and everything in the background and all the stuff going on, it does go up. Now, like I said, I'm just doing this because, yeah. So you can see, absolutely, this is with Crisis, with a high texture pack, and do you know what I mean? It's completely, absolutely maxed out as much as we can get for 1920 by 1080. You can probably hear that the fan speeds are starting to increase as well. If you were listening carefully in the background, you can see it's just as the temperatures are starting to go up a little bit. But anyway, that's enough of me playing games incredibly badly. It's now time for me to hopefully not conclude very badly. Right then peeps, on to the conclusion. Now, I'm going to say the award first, but then you do need to stay tuned to hear, you know, what I've really got to say about it, because the fact that it's got a gold award rather than the performance award is actually a little bit of a big deal. Now, generally with performance awards, the reason why we give it performance is it'd be like for something we would say like quad 690s or 4 7970s. The performance is there with benchmarking and stuff like that, but obviously the price is eye-watering. Now with this, it is going to sting. The price is going to be around the £1,000 mark. So that's still a little bit more expensive than like the 690, for example. But something that we really need to remember with the 690 is that is a mass-produced card. Whether they make as many as they would the 680s, irrelevant. It's a card produced by Nvidia, and then pretty much all the other brands stick their sticker on it. So they make a lot of them. This is just a Powercolor card, designed by Powercolor. So you've not got, they're not going to be making as many samples. So you would expect it, because it's going to be slightly more exclusive, and you know they're not going to be making as many of them, to be slightly more expensive. So I'm not condoning the fact that it's £1,000. I'm merely trying to explain to you that I can kind of understand why it is a little bit more. It's going to come in around the sort of price mark as like 3 of the individual cards. But obviously you have got 2 fully fledged 7970s on one PCB. So for those of you that may not have like a motherboard that's very well laid out to run multiple graphics cards and all that kind of thing, could be an option for you. But let's face it, there's some serious e-peen going to be going on with this. You're going to get an instant e-peen extension if you've got this in your spec list. Now, reason for between gold and performance. Normally with a card like this, you would expect it to be kind of on par with stock cards, maybe even a bit less, especially with standard OEMs. I'm just going to turn it off though, because it has got a bit of squeal in the background. If you can hear a high-pitched whine, it's one of the negative points. Now, with these generally, especially like for argument's sake, if it was a 6990 versus the 6970s, you would expect the dual core card to run a little bit less, because they normally kind of turn shaders off and stuff like that to save power, to save on heat and all that kind of stuff. So they normally throttle the dual core cards back a little bit. But with this, it's not like that. It is fully fledged 7970s on there, and it does perform like a pair of individual cards in Crossfire. Now that was something I was very surprised about. The main thing that really surprised me with this was the overclocking. Generally with these, like I said, 690s, 6990s, all the kind of dual core cards, even when you start talking about like the silly priced Asus limited edition cards, they don't really overclock that well. They're pretty much the type of things that you kind of fit and forget and just crack on with it. This overclocked really well, to the point where I think if I could get an Afterburner which had the core limit unlocked, I could probably get more out of it. And that was something I wasn't really prepared for, because that's a pretty big deal. With a lot of the other Powercolor cards, overclocking can be, you know, mediocre. With their kind of like higher end kind of, you know, overclocked, pre-overclocked cards, there's normally not a lot of headroom to go beyond the pre-overclock point. And normally they get them to a nice kind of safe sweet spot, and then it's only really, do you know what I mean, the silicon lottery beyond that you really get. With this was quite the opposite. That 1000 kind of like gigahertz core limit was just such, you know, it was nowhere near what the card was capable of. I wouldn't be surprised if I could get 1150 out of this, maybe even 1200 megahertz on the core, and it be stable. I was very disappointed the fact that the Powercolor overclocking tool actually made overclocking unstable though, to the point where if I hadn't have tried Afterburner, I wouldn't really be talking about this at all. It makes such a stark difference. So anyone out there that's got this or other Powercolor cards, try using Afterburner and see if your overclocks go further, because I really don't rate the Powercolor tool at the moment. I think that thing needs some serious work. Now, so when we did overclock it, the scores jumped massively to the point where generally when you start overclocking, you normally, when you start to get to the limits, the scores start to drop. Well, we had it at that. If we pushed the memory any further, we did start to get some artifacting. So I've got it at 100% stable point. It'll play all the games. Afterburner, you can leave, Unigine, you can just leave looping for hours and hours and hours and it's stable. Another good test with graphics cards with overclocks is 3D Mark Vantage. 3D Mark Vantage, especially when you're doing proper, insane, high-end kind of overclocks, you'll find that 3D Mark Vantage will fail, but other benchmarks will run fine. Unigine will pass, 3D Mark 11 will pass, sometimes even Furmark and like Combustor, things like that will pass, but 3D Mark Vantage will fail. This at those overclocks was 100% stable. So negative points. Obviously, people are going to moan about £1,000 for a graphics card, but the people that are going to moan about the price, it's just not going to be a card for them, or they're just not going to understand, you know, what it's about and stuff. But yes, it is a lot of money, but you can come to kind of educated conclusions as to why it does cost that much. The kind of negative point I have is it's not the quietest card in the world, but it's certainly not the loudest either. I've had much smaller cards be much louder than this. So they've done a very good job at keeping it kind of all those cores tame and under wraps. I would say it's probably on par with running 2 standard AMD cards like this. So with the I'm just covering up the sticker on it because I've not got a Powercolor one, but it's probably on par with running 2 of these with the standard cooler in one machine. So it's on that kind of noise level. So it's not massively loud, but at the same time, it's not immensely quiet either. You probably could get the fans to speeds to stay down lower, but obviously if you do that, you're going to end up with slightly higher temperatures. But the single thing that, if I had to point out a negative point about it, the single thing that has annoyed me with it has been, it does have a bit of high-end coil whine. Now, I don't know whether that, where I've not had this first, I don't know whether that's because people previously have had it and tried overclocking it too far or have abused it and stuff like that, or whether it's just one of the things with the cards. Generally, obviously, we've got it in an open-air rig and everything anyway. I think by the time you add like in a case and either speakers or headphones on, you probably wouldn't notice it anyway. But one of the things I did note is it does do it even on the start screen. It's not just when you're gaming and stuff like that. It can be just when it's, you know, just sat there idle. And generally when it's sat there idle, that might be when you're on like Facebook or Twitter or on the OC3D forums, and it might be those times when you tune into it more than anything else. But like I said, it's a big deal that we've gone for gold rather than performance, because generally that would have been what we would have done with this type of card and at this type of price. And really for us, and it's because it is so good that we went for that goal. We thought it was better than performance, because with the results that we did originally, now we may have got, you know, slightly better results because of updated drivers and stuff like that, but it's more there's something I wasn't prepared for, was the overclocking. With these type of cards, it's generally not, you know, as fruitful as this. It really isn't. For the card to have 925 stock, but us be able to get up to 1125 and then up from 1375 memory up to 1500, there's some pretty big steps there for a card that technically shouldn't be able to do it, because all the ones previously, they don't overclock that well. So that was really the difference that we went for. The fact that the temperatures were pretty good, it wasn't very loud, but at the same time, you know, it wasn't the quietest thing in the box. But let's face it, it looks the absolute gonads as well. So one of the things I do want to say and kind of point out was, generally when you get a custom card like this is generally when we'd normally be expecting to see an Asus logo on it. And quite strangely, I would say this is probably one of the best custom cards I've really ever had the privilege of playing with. There's normally some kind of niggly problem with them. They don't overclock, they don't do this, they're too hot, they're too loud, and it all comes down to it just being, you know, you want them because they're so exclusive. Now with this, bar that Coil Whine, there's not really a massive amount that I can say that's wrong with it. And it's more the fact that they've done it so well. And that's another reason for us wanting to give it the gold versus the performance. They really have come in with this card and gone, bam! We've not even seen one of these or anything remotely close to this from AMD yet. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't now either, because I don't think that if they did do one, it would be that much better than the 690. Maybe they're squirreling away trying to make it that much better than the 690, but still being able to churn it out cheap and be reliable. But we will have to wait and see. But now Powercolor have come and kind of gone, well, there you go, sort that lot out, then this is what we can do. It's kind of set the benchmark really, really high. So that if we do see something from AMD, I honestly think straight away it's going to come in below this anyway. Also, I think that if AMD did bring something out like this, it'd be around the same sort of price. So it'd almost be kind of pointless. But this is all speculation. But at the same time, with a custom card like this, we've not seen anything from Asus for a while. We don't know whether we're going to be getting a twin 680, we don't know whether we're getting a twin 7970, but times could be very interesting going forward. And Powercolor really have set that kind of, that bar, the standard, immensely high. And this is probably, no, actually, it is the best Powercolor card that they've custom engineered themselves that I've ever laid my hands on. I'm properly impressed with this. My expectations for this card were kind of about here, and it would have still been pretty good, but it's gone and superseded anything that I expected by such a degree that it really has surprised me and put a properly good grin on my face. And it is an amazing card. It's the type of thing that someone said to me, I mean, I'm thinking about buying it. Normally, like with the other custom cards, you're just like, it's just EP and you don't want to get it really, you want to do this, you want to do that. This, I would happily sort of say, yeah, that's a good card. Maybe try and get a custom water block for it, but other than that, it's really, really good. So with that kind of little bombshell, I need to get my some kind of like Stig stroke Top Gear endings written up really. But for now at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan with the Powercolor Devil 13 7990 Gold Award winning graphics card with another video for you. Out.